Summary of the book Secrets of Persuasion and Influence. How do you get the approval of others very quickly? This time I am. User not authored. The scientific mask is when a person is healed to change his control, thinking, production, service, or method of dealing with others. That is, he seeks to do something completely different from what he is doing, or to quickly tell you yes, or agree, in order to verify this. You must know what influences him and motivates him to take positions that he does not agree with what you say. Does everyone have a dual personality? Do we combine things and their opposites within us? We all have a conscious mind and an unconscious mind, but you do not know the effect of communicating with the unconscious anime. We communicate effectively and truly even under the influence of hypnosis. In contrast to conscious hope, what is most surprising here is that your conscious and subconscious minds have different characteristics, attitudes, and motivations from each other, and each of them has its own behaviors that often conflict with each other. The conscious mind may want accuracy and mastery, while the subconscious mind demands enjoying the present moment, regardless of the subsequent consequences. Characteristics of the conscious mind: forward-thinking, malleable and flexible, influenced by positive information, follows facts, forms a single system. Characteristics of the unconscious mind: immediate and rigid thinking, affected by negative information, follows repetitive patterns, forms a multiple system. The conscious and subconscious mind influence a person's behavior without affecting each other. For this reason, you say things like "I don't know," or "let me think about it." What makes it more difficult for us to understand ourselves and understand others is the number of memories and their infinite density that we store in a small block weighing approximately 1,400 grams. The brain is not a video device that records every event we experience. Rather, it is like a large warehouse where it stores our memories, beliefs, and their translations and interpretations. False memories are also common, to the point that every conversation we have, whether short or long, is present. It included a reference to at least one memory that did not exist in the first place. Changing oneself begins with changing behavior, which leads to changing attitudes and opinions. This means that you have to push others to adopt a certain behavior in order to influence them and convince them. The first thing you must do to change your behavior or the behavior of others is to change the surrounding environment, because when you control this environment, you can immediately shape and instill behavior that has become desirable after it was rejected. The first 4 seconds, your subtle body language and outward appearance. What more, they double the attractiveness of your personality and your ability to persuade, and raise your status in the eyes of others. You have only 4 seconds to make a first impression that may last a lifetime on those who see or listen to you. Studies have shown that people judge you in practical and personal aspects during the first few seconds in which you communicate with them for the first time, as their minds record their first impression of you, and they use it as a reference standard in any communication that takes place between you in the future. Whatever impression you want to leave on them, make sure it is properly planned. The Delta model and the two-effect Delt model consist of a number of points. Each point carries a specific number so that you can identify your strengths and weaknesses. First, achieving responsiveness means achieving equal and balanced communication between you and the client, so that you know whether responsiveness exists between you or not. Answer this question. Does he respond positively to me? If you answered yes, would there be a clear response between you? Reinforce this by developing within yourself your empathy and curiosity toward others. Secondly, build the foundations of response. Discover the client's interests, inclinations, and hobbies. If you do not understand anything about them yet, learn them immediately. Third, break the iceberg on how you communicate with your customers. If they have been raised since their childhood not to talk to strangers and not to discuss their personal life matters with anyone, how can he be reassured and trust you? It is necessary to break through the silence that exists between you and them first. Fourth, imitation. If you do not know how to communicate with the client, the safest way is to imitate him, that is, to be more similar to him and agree with your opinions. Fifthly, speak in the same tone and speed of voice that the client uses. Sixth, adjusting the breathing rhythm. Regulate and establish the rhythm of your breathing with the client to enhance understanding or communication. Seventh, the body position mimics, imitates, or imitates the body position taken by the client. Eighth, take a leadership position. You must now stop imitating and take control. If the client follows you and imitates you, you have succeeded in achieving a response between you. On a subconscious level, you can start making a sales pitch immediately. Ninth, vocal leadership. If you successfully identify with the customer's personality and your actions are compatible and responsive to his or her actions, you will have the opportunity to influence him by changing the characteristics of your voice in terms of tone and speed. 10th, kinesthetic leadership. If the client is responsive and in harmony with you, he will be less impressed by the simplest gestures and physical movements that you make. With others, this is what the customer buys from you, your giving personality. 12th, providing assistance. Show your trust in the client by helping him with a matter related to a client of his, meaning offering him help and advice in every possible way, even if you will not directly benefit from a similar experience. You can achieve the maximum possible sales effectiveness if you build up a stock of your previous experiences and situations with other customers, so you tell the current customer about another customer who recently bought from you, provided that the situation is real and realistically and similarly. 14th, respect with respect. You get what you want, so do not ignore the value of previous respect during the sales process. 510, dazzling. The shortest period of time we spend with the customer is the one during which we present the sales offer. Start strong and end strong, and strive to present your products or services in an impressive and honest way to win. Do not exaggerate when presenting your offer. Do not exaggerate in describing the product, and let it speak for itself. 18th, be precise, and a little more. If you know this car will get a customer 19 miles per gallon of gas, tell him that, and then reveal a secret. But if you use Goa oil, you will increase 3 miles per mile, and this will save you $100 annually. 19th, commit to speed, simplicity, and quality. As a cabin, or as a service provider, you now live in a world where the customer wants everything cheaper, faster, easier, and more luxurious. Make promises only with what you can provide, stick to your promise, and then outdo yourself by offering more than what he dreams of or expects. 20. Vigilance. Pay your full attention to every word the client says. During those moments, this is the most important thing to him, and it should be the most important thing to you. Credibility, the source of persuasion. Credibility is the basis of the persuasion process, and it does not matter at first whether you actually have credibility or not. What is important is that you appear so in the eyes of others. The factors that affect credibility are: first, competence; second, trustworthiness; third, experience; fourth, personal attractiveness; fifth, sobriety and rationality; and sixth, love, courtesy, and interaction with others. Your competence is one thing, and people's perception of it is another thing. They are two separate matters. And both are required, meaning that you must actually be an expert, and others should view you as an expert. How do you build your credibility? Firstly, show your level of education, knowledge, and experience. Secondly, communicate with people smoothly. Third, speed up your speech. Fourth, cite their positions and examples. Fifth, argue against your point of view. Be polite, be likable. Seventh, use humor carefully. How do you leave positive impressions on customers? First, try to be more elegant and better dressed than your client. Secondly, a person feels reassured and comfortable when he finds similarity with others in appearance, opinions, or values. Know the value of your customers and their opinions, and try to live up to expectations. Third, appear to the client in the best possible physical and psychological light. Fourth, know the values that matter to the customer and are a condition for his dealings with you, and provide them in your products and services. Fifth, know the customer's needs and requirements for the product or service you provide. Sixth, notice the customer's speed in speaking and listening, and try to keep up with him. Seventh, when you meet a woman, regardless of her gender, lower your level of sight compared to her. Women are more comfortable and less intimidated when their level of sight is higher than those around them. With them. Eighth, when the client gets emotional, remain calm and try to change his attitude and behavior. Ninth, know the terminology of the profession in which you work. 10th, show sincere interest in your work and its inclinations and work. Competition is a driving force for survival. We have learned from theories of biological evolution that competition between individuals or groups is what naturally selects the winners in society and annihilates the losers when you try to convince your customer to buy your products and services. He pursued his dream of owning products and services that would give him a unique advantage in his community, or against it is competition, as competition is part of the human survival instinct. The Omega strategy can be followed by the Omega strategy that was designed specifically if there is resistance or anyone rejects your message. Thus, it does not aim to add value to the sales offer as much as it aims to persuade with wisdom and overcome the situation. Rejection just for the sake of rejection. There are two types of resistance. The first is resistance, and a counterreaction towards you violates our personal freedoms of choice or making a decision. As for the second, it results from an expected feeling of remorse as a result of rejecting or accepting the offer. People resort to resistance and reject an offer without knowing the reason behind their rejection. Rather, they are simply overwhelmed by the feeling that this is the right decision. It is necessary that the word does not allow itself to be imposed, because its reputation must be immediately stripped of its weapons, influence, and power. Once the client announces publicly that he has taken a certain decision, it becomes difficult to influence him. To change his position, if he does not think carefully about the possibility of feeling regret later, his automatic reaction and subconscious choice will be no. Since rejection is the client's initial reaction, the solution is to skip his reaction, which is unconscious, and focus on the possibilities of his feeling of remorse, which is a conscious and controlled feeling. This increases your chance of convincing him. Alpha strategy. Alpha strategy makes the offer more attractive and adds value to it. Contrary to the Omega strategy, which focuses on reducing the client's resistance and rejection, what is flawed with the AMP strategy is that resistance is like water in the tank whenever we consume a portion of it. Whenever new water replaces it, in one of my experiments, the students are divided into two teams based on their answers to some questions. The first is a sage, the second is a skeptic, and then it is redivided into 4 subgroups. The first group watched 7 video clips featuring some unknown election candidates and their different opinions and positions. He asked one of the groups to focus more on the first video clip, and he asked the other 3 groups to direct most of their attention to the last video clip. But before showing the last video clip, he showed 2 of the 3 groups in the room a documentary about the Fiji Islands, and we asked them to think positively about the Fiji Islands, while the second group was asked to prepare a list of all the disasters that could happen to them. During their trip to and at the end, from all groups, they criticized every ad and every candidate. The naive group exhausted their resistance energy early while watching the ads, and became less critical of the candidates whenever a new video clip was shown. Although the clips were presented in a different order to different individuals, their reaction to the final clip was also influenced by the perspective they saw through the documentary. Those who criticized the Fiji trip had a positive opinion of the final candidate, and those who had a positive opinion of the trip. He criticized the candidate, but the reaction of the skeptical group was different, as their criticism of the first candidate was weak. Then it became more intense and stronger over time, despite watching the documentary about the Fiji Islands. The idea is that the resistance of others can be exhausted and weakened early, which reduces the chances of them rejecting your message and requests. Foot in the door strategy. You will not be able to convince anyone unless you stand in front of them face to face to convey your message to them. You can follow the foot in the door strategy. It is as if you are putting your foot in the door to prevent the client from closing it in your face. The goal of this strategy is to obtain the client's approval regarding a small offer and lure him to agree to the more important and larger offer. It has been proven that applying this strategy increases the chances of the client's acceptance and approval by 200%. These are some of the most important results that the studies have drawn. Firstly, the larger the first request that the business approved, the greater the chance of it agreeing to the second and most important request. Second, do not use money to buy the customer's approval of the first order, otherwise the strategy will not pay off. In other words, don't be tempted by the currency to do business with you or buy your products and services. Thirdly, the result must be that the second party does something, not that he does not, or promises that he will do something. Fourth, if the sales offer serves certain social aspects, the customer is more likely to agree to it than if it were the target of the offer. Close to only the new approaches to persuasion. First, the customer makes a purchasing decision based on the way you formulate the offer. Second, the business spends twice as much effort to avoid a loss than it does to achieve a profit. Third, reduce the options presented to the customer to increase the chances of selling and persuasion. Fourth, try to change your behavior, change the customer's attitude towards your products. Fifth, a person overestimates the value of what he owns. Most often. 6. Commitment to values and ethics is more important than impressing the customer. 7th, people always like to be at the top of the pyramid. 8th, convincing a group of people is easier than convincing one person. 9th, people will do anything to be part of the whole. How to be more persuasive and influential. First, give the customer a part of yourself or your products, ideas, or services. When a person owns something, he will consider it valuable compared to how he viewed it before owning it. Secondly, create a verbal image in the customer's mind that your products, services, or ideas are something he already owns, so it becomes the familiar and usual situation in his mind. For example, when you enjoy our garden care services, we will help you get rid of harmful weeds that other companies could not get rid of. Third, create a verbal image in the customer's mind that will make him feel nervous if he refuses to do business with you. In other words, show him what he has to lose if he doesn't use you. Fourth, do not confuse the opportunity cost, which is the return that the customer is forced to give up because he chooses another alternative, with the actual cost that he will pay. Applying the laws of influence and persuasion. First, the law of exchange. If you give someone something valuable, your response is the desire to give him something valuable. On the other hand, if your product is of high quality, send samples of it to your customers, and they will be more willing to buy it later, for 2 reasons. The first is that when they see it, they will recognize it as a product they have previously tried and used, as the human mind tends to choose familiar things. The second reason is that when you give a customer something, you stimulate feelings of reciprocity in him, and he gives you something in return. Secondly, the law of difference. If there are 2 things, people, or places that differ from each other, and are close in time and place, or in the mind of the customer, the contrast between them will be very noticeable, so it becomes easy to distinguish and determine which one is what we want more than the other. Have you ever walked into a grocery store? And I saw my uncle pick up 2 competing products and put each of them in his hand and his heart, what from all sides, trying to decide which one to buy. This customer is resorting to the law of difference. The law of difference does not mean that your price will always be the cheapest, but rather it means that if you place 2 products or services side by side or close in time, place, or mind, the customer will see the obvious differences between them clearly, which helps him choose which one to buy instead. Then to ask himself, should I buy or not? Third, make friends. When someone asks you to do something, and you trust that it is your best interest, you will feel motivated to carry out what he asked to make customers see you as a friend who cares about their interests. This will increase your chance of influencing and convincing them. If you highlight the negative aspects in your sales pitch, two goals will be achieved. First, your credibility will increase before the customer and he will consider you worthy of trust. Secondly, the customer feels reassured that you have saved him the trouble of searching for any defects himself. The presentation is an analysis of the law of scarcity. When a customer feels that a product he will need in the future is available in specific quantities, he feels that the value of this product is greater than it actually is. They call this frame of mind scarcity of supply compared to demand. The client's childhood or immaturity is often the cause. When the customer is 4 years old and there is one piece of cake on the plate, he realizes that if someone else comes forward and takes this piece, there will be nothing left for him, so it becomes wise for him to get the last piece of cake. This fear arises in us from childhood and becomes entrenched over time. Since its influence goes deep into our psyches, you must devise ways to exploit it positively during daily sales operations, provide keys to influencing others, and provide specific instructions or steps. When you are trying to direct someone or influence his behavior, it is not enough to stop him from committing a certain act or order him to follow a certain behavior. Or getting a job, or being polite, or remaining silent, all have the same result, which is failure, as long as they do not rely on clear instructions. Why? They say no? One of the reasons why a customer says no to your products or services is that this is his immediate and automatic reaction, which is often informed by his previous experiences. He may have previously purchased this product or a similar product, and it later became clear that his decision was wrong. 90%, the state of rejection stems from this negative past experience. In order to convince you, my uncle, you must first understand how he makes his decisions, how he remembers the experiences of the past, and how he envisions the future. This is what most sellers do not know, which makes the process of persuasion a game of chance and numbers whose goal is profit only, instead of its goal being to entice customers to buy. You must realize that customers first remember their important experiences, especially the disastrous ones. Second, they remember the results of their experiments. Third, they do not see the future clearly. They don't know how they will feel when certain things happen, even if they wish it would happen. Fourth, they remember how their experience ended and generalize this ending or outcome to subsequent experiences among the client. All potential futures who will sin, if they use your product or follow the conclusions they have drawn from their past experiences and the feelings they have had, instead of following the correct area. In other words, the client will not be able to get rid of his fear of loss unless he knows and analyzes the possible outcomes. After that, your interaction with him is very clear. Regarding the future or the scenario that is most likely to happen, if you exaggerate in painting a rosy picture of the future, you will lose both, because the client will feel that you are manipulating and exploiting him. But if you draw a realistic picture of the future, he will be more likely to be convinced and respond in the way you want. Mastery and persuasion skills. Everything you see, hear, read, or think affects your thoughts, decisions, and actions. Try the following. Repeat this word 5 times, then continue reading. Blood. What color and traffic lights indicate that the road is clear? Did you say red? Go back to the question and read it again. Don't try to convince the customer and get him to accept a specific message. It starts with the first impression that will last throughout the dealings between you and the future. This impression is achieved by a promise or a face, a smile or a wide smile, or anything else that sets the stage for what is to come. Your behaviors, words, and reactions are then remembered by the customer and used as a standard to compare your performance later. The first events in an experience or situation are what form our concepts about everything that follows this experience or situation, and there are studies that have proven that the last events affect our concepts and beliefs. Instilling options in the client's mind. You can instill a specific choice in the client's head. This option must be something the client has thought about before. If the client makes this choice himself, he will most likely struggle with it internally, because he will have thought of other options that he will call upon and waver between them. Imagine that I told you to choose any number. I chose 1 and 60,000, so what number did you choose now? Imagine that I said to another person, choose any number. I chose the number 14. Each person's answer will be completely different. In the second case, a person will rarely choose a number greater than 100, while in the first case he will choose a number in the thousands or tens of thousands, and perhaps even in the hundreds of thousands. In both cases, you stimulated the response by instilling a particular choice. In the first case, you are required to choose a large number. In the second case, you are asked to choose a small number, and whenever he pressures you to give me your response immediately. Your choice came close to the range you specified. I am yours. These numbers have no meaning, but they have a direct impact on the suggestions. Practice, you have to client. The goal of instilling certain options in the mind of the client is that they become part of their permanent memory. This makes it easier for you as a seller to create a basic point and perhaps a reference from which the process of persuasion begins. Few options and many profits if you present your idea, product, or service. In the middle of 20 other ideas, products, or services, there will be no noticeable difference between them, but if you present them individually, they will shine and become the most obvious. When you get the decision you want from the client, your role is over and you have to move on to the other client. But if you ask him about the reasons that led him to make this decision, the matter may turn against you, and the result will be the opposite. Make some decisions on behalf of clients. If you want to satisfy the customer, close the sale, and push him to deal with you again in the future, determine the number of options presented to him. For example, do not offer him 100 colored cards, and stick to only 5. Discover one or more of the values that the customer has during his interaction with you and achieve them for him, otherwise he will not feel completely satisfied with his decision. Do not make the client feel naive about his previous mistakes, and assure him that any person, no matter how intelligent and experienced he is at risk of going through the same experience and committing the same mistake if he is unconscious or intentional. The client felt one physical gesture or signal. If he made a silly mistake or was insulted in any way, his response would be no. How do you get the customer's approval? How do you convince a client that you are the ideal solution to all his problems, especially if you are just starting out? Meaning you just launched it as a new product line? What can encourage his client to listen to you basically without the customer's attention? Wouldn't you have a chance to influence him? Why does he buy from you? If he has been dealing with another supplier for many years? These are serious questions, and so they must be done. What is the persuasion process? In steps. Firstly, attract the customer's attention. Secondly, maintain their attention. Third, make bold promises. Fourth, separate any previous commitment from the current commitment. Fifth, he provided more than he promised. Sixth, impress the client so that she talks about you all the time in front of other clients, and this is what is known as viral marketing. How can women be convinced to buy first, not only focusing on meeting their needs, but also the needs of those around them? Like that? Secondly, the motives for selling. Yes, it is that you sincerely want to help her, and that what you are offering is the most appropriate solution, and not an opportunity that you will exploit to make a quick sale at her expense. Thirdly, do not rush. Ask her to try the product before buying it. Fourth, a lot of details. Provide her with all the information and details she wants to know, and make it easy for her to browse quickly. Fifth, trust and security without trust. You will not be able to impress any woman. Third, consolidate relationships if you do not buy from you immediately. Keep in touch with her. To enhance her confidence in your products and services, after purchasing, assure her that she can always count on you. 7th, he addressed her many talents. Women can excel in more than one job and are constantly looking for new ways to complete their work easily and quickly. Suggest some of these ways for her to do her work simply and easily. 8th, get her attention quickly. Women are always busy, so we skim through the information quickly. If you are not quick to attract her attention, but look for information elsewhere. 9th, use eloquence. Do not sell her an ordinary product, but rather make the product a dream that she longs to achieve in her eyes. Your product makes her life better and easier.